The beeping of the heart monitor pulls me from darkness. My eyelids feel like they've been glued shut, but I force them open to find my mother and sister Bree hovering over my hospital bed. Their expressions are oddly cheerful, a stark contrast to the antiseptic smell and the IV line snaking from my arm. "She's awake," Bree says, her voice pitched higher than normal. She's wearing a silk blouse I don't recognize, her hair freshly highlighted. Mom leans closer, her perfume overwhelming the hospital scents. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" The doctor says the food poisoning was quite severe. I try to speak, but my throat feels like sandpaper. 3 days unconscious, according to the whiteboard across from my bed. 3 days, with my wedding just a week away. "Malcolm?" I manage to rasp. Mom and Bree exchange a look that sends alarm bells ringing through my foggy brain. "About the wedding," Mom says, smoothing her linen pants. "We canceled it. He wasn't right for you. But don't worry, we made use of the deposit." The monitor beside me erupts with rapid beeping. My heart feels like it's trying to punch through my ribs. "What?" The word tears from my throat. Bree steps forward, eyes bright with excitement. "Your venue, your flowers, your photographer, they're all being used for my engagement celebration instead." The monitor shrieks louder. A nurse rushes in, her concerned face swimming in my vision as she checks my vitals. "You need to calm down," she tells me, then glances at my family. "Perhaps this isn't the best time for upsetting news." Mom waves her off. "Family business. She needs to know." As the nurse reluctantly leaves, memories flood back. 14 months of planning, every penny saved from my freelance graphic design jobs, late nights, creating custom invitations to save on printing costs. The $20,000 personal loan I'd taken out to cover final expenses, everything paid with non-refundable deposits. I remember Mom's face when I showed her my simple wedding dress, all I could afford after paying for everything else. She'd pursed her lips, disappointed. At least someone in this family is practical. The room spins slightly as I struggle to sit up. "What did you tell Malcolm?" Bree shrugs, examining her manicure. "That you were backing out, that you didn't want to go through with it." My hands stop trembling. A strange calm washes over me as I reach for my phone on the bedside table. It's not there. Where's my phone? "We took care of everything," Mom says, her voice soothing in a way that makes my skin crawl. The phone's been ringing nonstop with vendor questions. "You had no right." My voice sounds stronger than I feel. "Romy, be reasonable," Bree says, perching on the edge of my bed. "You're creative. You'll understand one day. This was bigger than your little wedding." Little wedding. The words slice through me. The venue I'd fallen in love with but could barely afford. The photographer who'd given me a discount because he liked my design portfolio. The florist who'd worked with my limited budget to create something beautiful. My mind calculates quickly $80,000 in non-refundable deposits lost. My relationship with Malcolm potentially destroyed by their lies. And something else. Something I've always known but never fully faced. My family has always seen me as less worthy than my sister. I stare at them, these women who share my blood but who could hurt me so carelessly. In their eyes, I see no remorse. Only the expectation that I'll eventually understand, that I'll forgive, because that's what I've always done. But as I look at Bree's smug smile and Mom's dismissive confidence, something hardens inside me, something that's been soft for too long. "Get out," I whisper. "What?" Mom blinks, genuinely surprised. "Get out of my room." Each word is perfectly clear despite my raw throat. "Now, Romy." "Out!" The monitor shrieks again as the nurse returns, more insistent this time. As my family is ushered from the room, I close my eyes against the fluorescent lights, against the reality of what they've done. They've taken everything. But they've also shown me exactly who they are, and who I need to become. The discharge papers feel like sandpaper between my fingers as I unlock my apartment door. 3 days in the hospital has left my body weak, but what happened in that sterile room has hardened something inside me. The smell of stale air greets me, a reminder that life paused while mine was stolen. My laptop sits on the coffee table where I left it before the food poisoning hit. I plug it in, hands still trembling slightly from medication and rage. When the screen lights up, a notification appears. 467 unread emails. I click on my sent folder first, a habit from managing client deadlines. Messages I never wrote stare back at me, dozens of them all sent during my hospitalization. To my venue, I've decided to transfer all arrangements to my sister's engagement party instead. Same date, same details. To my florist, please redirect my order to celebrate my sister's engagement. The family is thrilled about this change. To my photographer, as discussed with my mother, please shift all services to my sister's event. Nausea rolls through me, entirely different from the illness that landed me in the hospital. This was calculated, planned, executed while I lay unconscious. My phone, which Mom finally returned as I left the hospital, vibrates with a text notification. Malcolm's name appears on screen, the first contact since I woke up. I wish you'd just told me yourself instead of having your mother call. After 3 years together, I deserved that much. The room spins as I stumble to my bedroom closet. My wedding dress should be hanging in its garment bag, protected by plastic and hope. The closet stands empty except for my everyday clothes. They've taken everything. My doorbell rings an hour later. When I open it, my parents and Bree stand in the hallway, faces arranged in expressions of concern that don't reach their eyes. They file into my living room, remaining standing while I sink into my armchair, still unsteady. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" Mom asks, her hand patting my shoulder. The question ignites a fire in my chest, but before I can respond, Bree steps forward. Her left hand extends in a graceful gesture, and I freeze. My engagement ring, the simple emerald-cut diamond Malcolm saved for months to buy, glints on her finger. "I'm keeping it safe," she explains, twisting it slightly, "since everything's been so chaotic." Dad clears his throat, taking charge as he always does when difficult truths need explaining. "Romy, we need to discuss the practical aspects of what's happened." "Practical?" The word scratches my throat. "You were too sick. The deposits would have been lost completely," he continues. "Bree's future father-in-law is a prominent developer. This connection benefits the entire family." "How did you access my email? My accounts?" My voice sounds stronger than I feel. Mom looks away. "We used your emergency information at the hospital. The doctors needed someone to make decisions, and we're family." "I showed Malcolm some photos," Bree adds casually. "You and Dan at Christie's birthday last year. You looked close. I just suggested maybe you were having doubts." The betrayal cuts deeper with each casual admission. They're not even hiding what they've done. The Carson name means something now that Bree's marrying into the Whitaker family, Dad says, straightening his shoulders. "Sometimes individual sacrifices are necessary for family advancement." Individual sacrifices. As if my wedding, my savings, my future were just inconvenient obstacles to Bree's happiness. "Do you understand what you've done?" I ask, the calculator app open on my phone. $80,000 in non-refundable deposits. Gone. Plus the $20,000 loan I'm still responsible for. Mom waves this away. "You're always so good with money. You'll figure it out." "Bree also helped with your clients," Dad adds, as if offering good news. "She explained you were having a breakdown and couldn't meet deadlines." The room tilts again. My freelance business, built over years of late nights and careful networking, undermined with a few concerned calls. Malcolm has blocked my number. I say, voice hollow. "I've tried calling 17 times. "This tantrum isn't helping anyone," Dad says, his tone hardening. "Legal action would destroy the family and embarrass everyone. Is that what you want?" Mom moves to sit beside me, her perfume clouding my senses. "After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us?" My phone rings, saving me from responding. The wedding videographer's name flashes on screen. I answer, turning away from my family's watchful eyes. "Romy? It's Terry. Listen, I'm really confused about this engagement party rebrand. The venue staff mentioned it was originally a wedding, and when I asked whose, they said yours. What's going on?" His concern, this stranger's genuine confusion, feels like the first honest interaction I've had since waking up in the hospital. After explaining briefly, I hang up, finding my family still waiting, expressions unchanged. As I stare at them, I wonder if I should simply accept this loss as family helping family, as they claimed, or if I should fight for what was rightfully mine. Standing up for myself might cost me my family entirely. What would you do when the people who should protect you become the ones who hurt you most? When the day of what was supposed to be my wedding rehearsal comes, notification chimes on my phone, another Instagram tag from Bree. I shouldn't look, but my finger betrays me, tapping before my brain can intervene. The image fills my screen. Bree and James, champagne flutes raised in a toast, standing in the exact spot where Malcolm and I were supposed to exchange vows. The warm sunset lighting catches the vintage chandelier I'd specifically requested for the space. When you know it's meant to be. Perfect timing. Engaged. Forever after, reads the caption. My phone buzzes again, then again, and again. Messages from mutual friends pour in. So generous of you to give your sister your wedding plans. Why didn't you tell me you were having second thoughts? I can't believe you just stepped aside like that. I silence my phone and set it face down on the kitchen counter. The apartment feels too small suddenly, the walls pressing in. A familiar knot forms in my throat as I realize my mother's version of events is spreading faster than I can counter it. The day after, the landline rings, the one I keep for emergency client calls. My mother's voice fills the answering machine, her tone artificially bright for any potential listeners. Romy, sweetheart, I'm just checking in. Everyone keeps telling me how touched they are by your generosity. Such a beautiful thing, stepping aside when you realized you weren't ready for marriage so your sister could have her moment. Call me back when you can. I grab the phone receiver and slam it back into its cradle, cutting her off mid-sentence. 3 days later, an envelope arrives with my building's mail. The familiar weight and texture of premium cardstock, my cardstock, from my design portfolio, tells me what's inside before I even open it. The invitation to Bree's engagement celebration uses my exact wedding design, right down to the custom monogram I'd created, now repurposed with Bree and James's initials. The loan statement arrives the same day. $20,000, plus interest, still due, regardless of whether I walk down the aisle or not. I spread my financial documents across the kitchen table that night, calculator in hand, running numbers until the digits blur before my exhausted eyes. Every scenario ends the same way. Financial ruin unless I can recover what they've taken. Sleep becomes a luxury I can't afford. Client deadlines missed during my hospital stay pile up. I heard you were having a breakdown. One client says cautiously when I call to apologize for the delay. Your sister reached out to let us know. I hang up and immediately draft a professional email explaining the actual situation, severe food poisoning, hospitalization, while avoiding any mention of family theft. The careful wording takes hours, my finger hovering over send as I weigh professional transparency against airing family trauma. Late Thursday night, I discover they've accessed my design portfolio. Private concepts I'd been developing for months now appear in posts from Bree's future mother-in-law, who praises her future daughter-in-law's creative eye. The Whitaker family social media accounts showcase napkin designs and table settings identical to ones in my private folders. I start keeping notes. Times, dates, screenshots, emails. I create a timeline labeled Wedding Theft and document everything chronologically. The act of recording feels like the first real step toward reclaiming what's mine, transforming emotional wounds into evidence. The call from Flora's Florals comes unexpectedly on a Tuesday afternoon. Romy? It's Cynthia from the flower shop. Something strange is happening with your wedding arrangements. I brace myself for another cancellation notice. I know. They're being used for my sister's engagement party now. A long pause. Your mother said you were too ill to manage the details. She never mentioned. She stops. I've worked with families for 30 years. This doesn't feel right. It isn't, I admit. My voice smaller than I intend. Listen. Cynthia's voice softens. I put aside some arrangements from flowers your sister rejected for her celebration. They're beautiful, just not what she wanted. If you'd like them, they're yours. No charge. When I arrive at the shop that afternoon, a cluster of blush peonies, ivory ranunculus, and blue thistle awaits me, flowers deemed not glamorous enough for Bree's vision. Sometimes beauty comes from what others discard, Cynthia says kindly, pressing the arrangement into my hands. The dinner invitation arrives from my mother 3 days later. Family healing, she calls it in her voicemail. Time to reconcile and support Bree's happiness. The Whitakers will be there, my first chance to meet the family Bree is marrying into. I wear black. Not mourning clothes, but a simple sheath dress that feels like armor, as I walk into my parents' dining room. James Whitaker rises when I enter, his handshake firm, his smile genuine. He clearly has no idea. So glad you're feeling better, he says. Your parents told us about your illness. Terrible timing. Dinner proceeds with excruciating pleasantries. Mom describes Bree's engagement celebration plans, my wedding plans, while Dad beams proudly. I push food around my plate, waiting. Can't you just be happy for your sister? Mom finally asks during dessert, her voice honeyed with maternal concern. Why must you make everything about yourself? The table falls silent. All eyes turn to me. I'm not making this about me, I say, my voice steadier than my hands. You already did that when you stole my wedding. James's fork clatters against his plate. What do you mean stole? Romy is still not well from her hospital stay. Mom interjects quickly, reaching for my arm. Perhaps we should step outside. I was hospitalized with food poisoning, I continue, looking directly at James. While I was unconscious, my family canceled my wedding, told my fiancé I didn't want to marry him, and transferred all my venues, vendors, and designs to Bree's engagement party. James turns to Bree, confusion evident in his furrowed brow. Is this true? My sister's face flushes crimson. For the first time since this nightmare began, I see a crack in her confidence. The next morning, I receive a call from the videographer, his voice cautious. Romy, I thought you should know. I accidentally left equipment recording during setup at your venue. I mean, the venue where your sister's having her celebration. Your mother and aunt were there early, discussing the situation. He pauses. I have the footage. They didn't know they were being recorded. My heart pounds as he continues. Your aunt said, and I quote, "This was for the best." Bree elevates the family name. Romy. Well, she always aimed small. Within days, the photographer emails, then the venue coordinator. Each message expresses discomfort with the situation, offering statements about what really happened. These strangers, people I hired but barely know, show more concern for my well-being than my own parents. One Wednesday evening, I search for civil attorneys specializing in fraud and contract litigation. I'm halfway through drafting an email when my phone lights up with a name I'd almost given up seeing, Malcolm. I've been hearing some strange rumors, he says, his voice guarded but not hostile. Stories that don't match what your mother told me. I close my eyes, relief washing through me. I need to tell you what really happened. Later that night, as I shut my laptop, preparing for bed, a new email notification appears. The sender, James Whitaker. The subject line, request to meet privately. I open it, my fingers suddenly steady as I type my response. 3 days later, the morning light filters through the coffee shop windows as I arrange my documents on the table. Everything organized, labeled, dated. My hands are steady now, unlike the trembling mess they were in the hospital a week ago. James Whitaker sits across from me, his expression wary but attentive. He looks nothing like his fiancée, where Bree is all practiced, smiles and performative charm. James has the straightforward gaze of someone who values clarity. Thank you for meeting me, I say, voice calm despite the storm inside me. I slide the first folder toward him. This is the original venue contract. My signature, my deposit check, my name on every page. His eyes scan the document, brows drawing together. I push forward the loan paperwork next. $20,000. Still in my name, still my responsibility. James looks up, confusion evident. But Bree said. I know what Bree said. The words come out sharper than intended. I take a breath, remembering my attorney's advice. Facts, not emotions. Here are text messages from the vendors confirming the transfer of services while I was hospitalized. Each piece of evidence lands between us like stones dropping into still water. James's face grows increasingly troubled, ripples of realization spreading across his features. His coffee sits untouched, cooling beside contract pages that burn with implications. I was told this was a generous gift from your family. He finally says, voice hollow, that you wanted to step aside because you weren't ready for marriage. Nothing was given, I reply, the words simple but devastating in their truth. Everything was taken. The bell above the door chimes, and I don't need to turn to know who's entered. The scent of Bree's perfume, always too strong, always announcing her presence before she speaks, wraps around us like a chokehold. What's going on here? Her voice carries across the quiet shop, drawing glances from other patrons. Having a little secret meeting about me? James stands, his face tightening. Bree, we need to talk about these contracts. Contracts? Bree laughs, the sound brittle against the morning quiet. She's always been jealous of me, always trying to ruin my happiness when things finally go right. A woman at the table beside us looks up, recognition flashing across her face. Excuse me, aren't you the patient from Memorial Hospital? Floor 3? My stomach tightens as I nod. I was your night nurse. She turns to James and Bree. I was so concerned when your family took her phone while she was unconscious. The way they accessed her accounts, I almost reported it, but they insisted they had permission. The color drains from Bree's face as James steps away from her, creating distance that speaks volumes. You did what? His voice drops to that dangerous quietness that only truly angry people manage. He pulls out his phone. I'm calling my parents. They need to hear this directly. Bree reaches for his arm. James, wait. He moves further away, speaking in low tones into his phone. Bree stands frozen, her carefully constructed narrative crumbling around her. As James ends his call, he turns to me. My parents would like to meet with you, tomorrow evening if possible. I nod, watching Bree's face contort with panic. As James's parents requested to meet, I wondered if I should pursue full legal action against my family, or accept the Whitakers' offer to mediate a resolution. Would justice require burning bridges entirely, or was there a path that held my family accountable while preserving some relationship? That evening, my phone buzzes with messages of support. The videographer has sent the raw footage from the venue setup, capturing my mother's voice clearly. Romy would understand if she knew what was at stake here. The Whitakers can do so much for our family. His formal statement accompanies the file. I was misled about the nature of the event change and wished to provide evidence of the deception. Malcolm calls next. I met with your attorney today, he says, voice steadier than the last time we spoke. I told her everything your mother said to me, how they showed me old photos of you with David to convince me you were having doubts. My throat tightens. Thank you. I should have called you directly instead of believing them. The vendors follow with a joint statement describing the manipulation, the claims that I was too ill to make decisions, the forged emails, the pressure applied when questions arose. My attorney's message is brief but powerful. With the evidence collected, we have strong cases for fraud, conversion, and defamation. The documentation is impeccable. Just before midnight, my father calls. His voice lacks its usual authority, replaced by something I've never heard before: uncertainty. What do you want to make this go away, Romy? He asks without preamble. I say nothing, letting his question hang in the silence. Several of your mother's friends have called her today, he continues. People are talking. I check Bree's Instagram, normally updated hourly with wedding planning details, to find it suddenly quiet. The last post, featuring my original venue, has accumulated comments questioning the event's origin. As I prepare for bed, an official email arrives from James. My family would like to invite you and your parents to our home tomorrow evening to discuss a resolution to this situation. The same message. Same request. Again. I set down my phone, staring at the wall where my wedding calendar once hung. For the first time since waking in that hospital bed, I feel something shift inside me. Not hope exactly, but something stronger. The scales of power have finally begun to tip. The next day, the Whitakers' living room feels like a museum: pristine cream furniture, family photos in sterling silver frames, not a cushion out of place. James's father sits with military posture, his mother perched beside him like a vigilant bird. I sit across from them, my hands steady despite the storm inside me. My family arrives 15 minutes late. Mom sweeps in wearing her church clothes, Dad tugging at his collar like it's strangling him. Bree follows, her eyes puffy but chin high. We've prepared a statement, Dad announces, unfolding a paper with trembling fingers. There have been unfortunate misunderstandings between our daughters. This was simply a case of family helping family during a crisis. The words echo hollow against the Whitakers' vaulted ceiling. No one responds. Mom leans forward, her pearl necklace catching the light. Romy, we've always supported you, even when you chose that impractical career over the accounting degree we offered to pay for. I remember eating ramen for dinner 3 nights a week while putting myself through design school. The audacity of her revision of history makes my jaw clench. Bree sighs dramatically. I'm sorry you feel hurt, but everything worked out for the best. James and I needed a proper celebration, and you were too sick to use what you'd arranged. Family loyalty matters, Dad interjects, his voice rising slightly. Keeping private matters private is what distinguishes respectable families. Mr. Whitaker's eyebrow lifts almost imperceptibly. If you pursue legal action, Mom says, her voice dropping to a whisper, you'll be cut off completely. No holidays, no contact with your cousins, no family support ever again. The threat hangs in the air like smoke. I take a deep breath and place my leather portfolio on the coffee table. The room falls silent as I open it methodically. I'd like to share some information with the Whitakers, I say, my voice steadier than I've ever heard it. From my bag, I remove a small speaker and place it beside my documents. With one touch, voices fill the room, my mother and aunt, crystal clear. This was for the best. Bree elevates the family name. Romy. Well, she always aimed small. Her wedding would have been embarrassing compared to what we've arranged for Bree. Mom's face drains of color. I press another button, stopping the recording. The videographer accidentally left equipment running during what was supposed to be my wedding setup. I explained to the Whitakers. He was quite troubled by what he heard. I spread out printed emails, showing my mother accessing my accounts while I was hospitalized, correspondence with vendors where she impersonated me. Bank statements revealing my wedding loan payments diverted to cover Bree's additional expenses. There are 23 separate fraudulent transactions, I say, pointing to highlighted figures. Not including the identity theft when they accessed my email and vendor accounts while I was unconscious. James's father leans forward, scanning the documents, his jaw tightening with each page. This isn't family helping family, he says finally, voice like gravel. This is theft and fraud. Bree begins to sob. Mom reaches for her hand, ignoring me completely. I meet Mr. Whitaker's gaze. I don't need their approval anymore. I just need them to make this right. The room feels charged, like the air before lightning strikes. Family photos stare down from the walls, generations of Whitakers looking proper and principled. I wonder what they would think of this drama unfolding beneath their frames. Mr. Whitaker stands, straightening his cuffs, a businessman's habit before delivering terms. You have two options, he tells my family. Full financial restitution, including the $80,000 in deposits, loan interest, and compensation for emotional damages, along with a public apology clearing Romy's name with her clients and friends. Or legal proceedings, which I assure you will become very public, very quickly. Bree's crying turns to wailing. You're ruining everything. This was supposed to be my moment. Everyone was finally seeing me. Mom wraps her arm around Bree's shoulders. Sweetheart, we'll fix this. Don't worry. She doesn't glance my way. The weight of 30 years of being second best should crush me. But somehow, watching their performance now, I feel nothing but clarity. Mrs. Whitaker rises from her seat and, to everyone's surprise, moves to stand beside me. Her hand rests lightly on my shoulder. In our family, she says quietly, we value honesty above convenience. Dad slumps forward, elbows on knees, finally meeting my eyes. We made a terrible mistake. We will make restitution. The admission should feel like victory. Instead, it feels like watching strangers acknowledge a debt. Mr. Whitaker turns to his son. James, I believe you should reconsider this engagement. Character reveals itself in crisis. Bree gasps, mascara streaking down her cheeks. As Dad signs the agreement, Mr. Whitaker's lawyer prepared full repayment of $80,000 plus interest and damages. I feel no triumph, only exhaustion. The photos from Bree's stolen celebration will be removed from social media and vendor websites by tomorrow morning. The money will be returned within 30 days. What remains unresolved is whether I can ever trust my family again after such a fundamental betrayal. Some broken things can't be mended with money or apologies. As we conclude the meeting, Mrs. Whitaker walks me to the door. Through the leaded glass panels, I see a familiar figure waiting by a car in the circular driveway. Malcolm stands in the golden afternoon light, hands in his pockets, uncertain but present. James invited him to hear the truth. I pause at the threshold, wondering if second chances exist for relationships built on ruins, but somehow I already know the answer, and in a year I will finally breathe fully. A year later, the morning sunlight pours through the wide windows of my Portland apartment, casting golden rectangles across the polished concrete floor. I move between them, barefoot, coffee mug warming my palms as I study the mock-ups spread across my drafting table. The space feels entirely mine, no compromises, no apologies. A notification chimes from my laptop. Another client booking for Second Bloom, my consultancy for women reclaiming milestone events stolen by circumstances or, in some cases, people who should have protected them. The irony doesn't escape me. Mom and Bree never imagined their betrayal would become my business model. My gaze drifts to the framed testimonial on my wall. You helped me rebuild what I thought was permanently broken." The words belonged to Elaine, a widow whose in-laws canceled her husband's memorial service without consulting her. We recreated it, better than before. The mail slot clicks. Among the envelopes sits a heavy cream invitation with familiar handwriting. My cousin Rachel's wedding announcement. First family contact in months. I settle into my reading chair, fingers tracing the embossed edges. A year ago, I would have immediately RSVP'd yes, regardless of my own feelings. The old Romy prioritized family peace above personal boundaries. That woman no longer exists. Tucked inside the invitation is a handwritten note. I know what they did. Your presence would mean the world to me, but I understand if it's too much. I set the invitation on my coffee table, neither accepting nor declining. I'll decide based on what I want, not what obligation dictates. The choice itself feels like victory. The doorbell rings at 7. I open to familiar faces bearing covered dishes and wine bottles. Tonight marks the anniversary of what would have been my wedding day. Instead of mourning, we're celebrating. "The garden's ready," calls Lisa, the florist who first noticed something wrong when Mom tried changing my arrangements. She's arranged fairy lights along my small balcony garden, transforming it into something magical. Tom, the videographer whose accidental recording proved my family's deliberate deception, adjusts a portable speaker. Beside him, Eric the photographer arranges platters on my outdoor table. These vendors became friends when they refused to participate in my family's scheme. Malcolm arrives last, looking relaxed in a way he never did during our engagement. We tried rekindling our relationship after the truth emerged, but some broken things can't be mended. The friendship that remained proves more valuable than what we lost. He raises his glass as we settle around the table, to boundaries that protect and second chances that heal. The next morning, I sit before a microphone in a downtown studio. The producer signals 5 seconds until we're live. Today on The Stories We Reclaim, we're speaking with Romy Carson, whose family's betrayal became the foundation for her successful consultancy, helping others rebuild after personal catastrophes. The host begins. "Romy, we've received news that a publisher has approached you about sharing your experience in book form?" I smile. "Yes, it's still surreal. The book will focus on helping others recover from family betrayal without losing themselves." The question many listeners wonder: have you forgiven your family? I consider carefully. Forgiveness doesn't mean allowing harmful people continued access to your life. I've released the anger, but maintained the boundaries their actions made necessary. After the interview, I walk through the Japanese garden, stopping to photograph a delicate purple blossom pushing through a crack in a stone wall, beauty emerging from brokenness. As I capture the image, I wonder if reconciliation requires forgetting the past, or if true healing comes from remembering but no longer being defined by it. What moments in your life have you had to reclaim from those who tried to take them?